Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another JD channel video, in which today we're working on the 2013 Honda Civic. We are giving it an oil change, and I'll show you how to do it and what you need. So stay tuned. So to gain access to the compartment where the oil filter and the oil is, there's this skid plate, which I just kind of took off because I already unbolted it. But you'll have 4 screws. You'll have one here, one hiding right next to this plastic here, and then towards the rear you have 1 and 2, which all look like these. They use a Phillips screwdriver, or probably that special screwdriver that you use for the the rotors, but nonetheless you could use a Phillips. And takes it off. You just slide it, it comes right off. Careful not to burn your hand on this exhaust manifold. And then the oil filter, unlike the older Hondas, is right here. See, if you're towards the front, it's right next to the basically oil pan. Then for this you're going to use a 17. Let me get my 17 and we'll remove the oil. For this I would really recommend a tarp, because with this style of Honda, or the newer engines, with the oil filter facing down, it's going to just go downward and spill everywhere. Before, the oil filter was by the block in the back. With this one it's not, so I would really recommend a tarp just to make sure it doesn't make a mess on the driveway. So now let's put the oil pan in. Alright, now taking a 17mm wrench, go loosen the drain plug right here. And of course you gotta turn it counterclockwise. Sorry if I'm twisting. Okay, after you loosened it with the wrench, just take it off. So counterclockwise. See, it's loose. I guess. And don't forget to replace the little washer here. Usually those are like 50 cents, I think, a Honda. You can buy on eBay for a lot cheaper. Just find the right size. And be prepared, this thing's gonna make a mess. Which stinks because the oil filter's over here. So I would recommend waiting for this to drain all the way before you do this one, because then you'll have a mess in 2 places, and the oil pan is not that big, or the oil catch can. Ooh, it's hot. And we're just gonna loosen enough to let it go. Ooh, ooh, yeah. See, it was hot. Let it drain. Let's see here, and see, it's overflowing. So I'd recommend the tarp, and see, now it's overflowing. To get the little air valve here, drain out. It's gonna take a second. Oh, well, that stinks. So let's try and keep this glove clean, but that's okay. At least these ones are cheap. And obviously the back part being cloth doesn't insulate that well. Let it drain for a while. Then we'll go on to the filter. Now if you have a Honda filter, obviously, unlike those new conventional ones, it doesn't have that grip. And obviously, you know, it's not very easy to grab, especially being hot here. So I would recommend getting a oil filter wrench and taking it out. The ones in the back of the block aren't as hard to do, but this one being right here, kind of a weird place right next to the oil pan, they're not that great. So gonna kind of make it this probably one of the smallest settings. Okay, crud, sorry. And we're gonna just twist it off. Jeez, I think it doesn't lock in place, of course. Let's see if I can get it where it doesn't do that. Crud. And of course it doesn't. I try to loosen it by hand, but it's being hot and the location, I'm gonna have to probably turn off the camera and do it. Let's see if I once you've loosened it with that wrench, which make sure you get one that locks very well. This one I found out does not. This is really one of the few cars I actually had to use a wrench on. So once it's loosened, you can get it off. I'm wondering if when it's warm it's easier, because it's really hot, so kind of helps. See, look at that. This is why I recommend the tarp, because it just spills everywhere being designed the way it is. Okay, see how much oil comes out of here. And see, most oil filters, it goes backwards. This thing just does that. It makes a mess everywhere. I hate doing this. I'm glad I don't have to do this that often, but I would really recommend one of those cheapy filters with the grip. I know it doesn't protect as well, but I mean, if it's your beater or if it's just, you know, the daily, that should work well. Look at all that oil. Jeez. Just to keep the driveway clean. And comes out of there, it comes out of here. This thing's not even long enough to cover both areas, so pretty much drain that one, then come here. Alright, and before putting the cover back, you want to add the oil and then start it to make sure there's no leaks. For this, obviously being at a weird angle, you're gonna have to figure how to put it in, then twist it a few times till it's really tight. And then for the oil drain plug, you want to be very careful. It tells you to torque it to 29 foot-pounds, but using a torque wrench, you're going to snap that. And it's very easy to snap these. So make sure it's flush and tight, and that there's no gap between the gasket, well, the washer and the drain plug. I mean, you'll see any leaks when you start it up. I mean, if it's going to leak, it's going to leak right there, and then rev it a few times. See if any oil drips from it, and then adjust it as needed before putting back the cover. Now that's all tightened up, I'm going to go add oil to the top and fill it to capacity, and then start up and test it. This car requires 3.9 quarts with the filter, so I got a jug of 0.20. I'm going to use a funnel, because being so close to the cowl in the back, you don't want to spill, man, because otherwise you're going to smell that for days. So insert the funnel into the oil area and then dump it in, making sure not to exceed 3.9, and then check the dipstick as you go, just to ensure you have the right level. You just put this here. It's kind of nice in the R18 that the alternator's right there where the K, there's so many things in front of it. But let's this here, only going to 3.9, pretty much 4. So give me 1 extra quart for this. Make sure there's no leaks underneath, because if you see anything leaking right there, then obviously stop and check your work. Keep going to 3.9. You're wondering why I'm using SuperTech. I mean, we have this, this. So this is the daily. I mean, this is synthetic. I haven't seen anything wrong with this so far. So, I mean, we're gonna use it until something goes wrong. Especially for the cost for full synthetic, why not, right? I think this was like 12 bucks. Check and make sure. Quite a bit to go. This actually looks like it's easier to read, so pretty much until it gets almost 1 quart. Check again. Looking for a little stream or anything. Don't see anything so far. Hopefully it start up when it pressurizes, it doesn't leak. Okay, add some more. Sure not to dump debris in there either, like I kind of did a little. Oops. Let's check now. Okay, we're still only at 2 quarts. Still left. That should be good now. Okay, a little more. Then we'll stop and check. Okay, a little bit. You might want to stop a little bit before that just to make sure. Let's check now. Recommended oil on this is 0.20. So let's sit for a little bit and we'll check the dipstick. So the recommended is 3.9 quarts, or pretty much 4. Now if you're gonna add obviously an additive, don't forget to account on that and then minus that from your total that you're gonna put back into the crankcase. And so we're gonna check the dipstick here and the cross areas where the oil should be. Gonna start it up just to see for any leaks and then see where the dipstick is after. Now resetting your oil indicator light is very simple. Turn the car on, then go to menu. Turn that off so no copyright infringement. Hit menu here on the steering wheel. You're gonna be brought into some options, or see here, menu. We're gonna go to vehicle information. Hit the center button to continue. Maintenance info, hit that again. Oh, let me just zoom in there. So oil life. I just happened to reset it a while ago just because I wanted to make it to stop complaining. So press and hold the source button on here to reset it. You like to reset, click yes. And then the maintenance info has been reset and now it's at 100%. And start it up and check for leaks. So now with it on, what you're really looking for on the drain plug is if it's oil is bubbling up here. You rev it a little bit, see if it gets wet. So I'll tell you if it's leaking. Basically gonna cycle the oil for a little bit, check for leaks, and then put back the panel, and then check the level on the top, make sure it's accurate. I'm gonna run it for about 5 minutes, turn it off, rev it a few times, see if it's leaking, and then adjust it accordingly. Now Scotty says, rev up your engine. Probably not this high, but just want to ensure if it's leaking, it's gonna leak because of all the oil pressure. Let's check now. Go back under. Sure we have no bubble or leaks, because that should have cost something to happen. Checking. Check around it. Make sure. And my finger's dry, so looks like we're good. So go run it and then turn it off and check the level. When a little bit of smoke tells you a little bit of oil spilled and heated up, but I just wiped the dipstick and I put it back. Now let's check what the level is. And it should be within the cross hatches, which this one is, so perfect. We are good to go. Now seal everything up and basically take it for a test drive. Alright, now with the 4 Phillips screwdrivers you took, Phillips screws that you took off earlier, put back the panel, which I shouldn't have left under the car because look how oily it got. And all the screws are the same size, so therefore you put it this orientation, and you'll obviously, when you're trying to fit it on, you'll see that everything slips in correctly. Like part of it slides in and then you screw it in place, and so it won't rock. I'm guessing nowadays, I'm wondering if anybody probably lost it at this point if you don't have a dealer serviced, because I mean skid plate ain't. Look at that, just a big, wow, it's so oily. I gotta wipe this first, but this is going back to this portion right here with the 4 screws. Alright, after you aligned everything and put in the screws, which I'll show you, there's a few tabs it has to slide into. So the front part has to face and slide in here, which the wider part obviously goes forward, kind of this Nevada shape. So there is one thing it slides into here, as well as 1, 2 in the back. And once you slide them all in, you put in the screws in 1, 2, 3, and 4. and then the rest is all held in with the tabs. I had to clean up all this and wipe this down, so now I can take it off the ramp and take it for a test drive. Before I do that, let me polish up these headlights with some of this scratch and swirl remover. So I don't think it's as good as the plastics was, but just basically just lay it on. Then you're gonna rub it with a rag and then polish it back off. See how this works. After waiting a few minutes, but don't wait too long because it might dry up. Give it a hard rub and see that night and day difference. Look at that. I mean, these headlights aren't that old, so it's not terrible, but a little bit of polish, you can see a night and day difference, literally. As you can see in the housing, it's nice and shiny. And you just rub it until you take the whole thing off. See, even with the tarp, it makes a mess based on how the drain plug and the friggin' oil filter are designed. So gross. Dang, now it's time to clean up and take it for test drive. Alright, so I started up, and as you can tell, it's quiet. It was a lot louder at first before the oil change, so now I'm just having it washed. So far it seems good, so let's see how that goes. Then I'm gonna go get this thing detailed. I just parked the Civic and I'm gonna hop into the Integra since it's way too wet to drive that thing around because they shampooed everything. But so far so good. It ran okay, and I mean, at least it's a lot smoother. We got some new tires, so I mean, this was a good maintenance effort. So I thank you for tuning into another JD channel video, and take care, and hopefully I post more this year. Take care.